TRS Clips, India's smartest podcast, brings you India's smartest YouTube channel. Make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you hit the bell icon.
The part two, why should a Indian youth join the army? It's a very good question. I think I've answered it in another forum slightly flippantly at that point of time, in which I gave this same concept that pretty much everything that you are going to learn in management, span of command, amount of troops under you, what is the, like, I'll give you an example. There's so much of army in your life that you don't know about. I'll give you an example. In good old days, the kings would not keep a huge standing army. There was no point. We're not fighting by have a huge standing army. So they'll have a small standing army. And whenever there was a battle or a crisis or whatever, the emperor will send out, acha wo Jodhpur se itne log bhejo, Jaipur se itne. So from different subas, people would come. Or different risalas, as they were known at that point of time, subas. Or that's where the word subedar comes from. Similarly, there was no payroll system those days. So 10 people's salary would be handed over to the senior most guy and he'll be told, ye 10 logon ka hawala aapko diya jata hai. That's where the word havaldar comes from. So instead of the subedar, if the subedar could not come, he would send his deputy, the naib subedar, the sub-inspector. It all comes from there. It originates from there. So a lot of that lessons which you will learn in B schools, I think are second-hand lessons. The primary fountainhead is there. So one great opportunity is to learn that from the primary fountainhead. The second is, like I explained earlier, the camaraderie, the bonding, and that wealth that you will create over there is again a great thing to possess for life. I tell a lot of my people who listen that join it for 10 years. You have an option to join for 10 years. During that 10 years, you will be groomed from the age of, say, about 20, 25. That's usually the bracket at which people join, up to 30, 35. And you will come out into the CV street as an individual who is equipped for handling pretty much everything in life. Anything that life will throw at you, you will be able to, life will push you in the chest from a 20-floor building. You will tumble and fall on your feet because you've been trained how to do that. So that's the second reason, I would say. The third reason is what happens when a young man or a woman joins an organization, does their MBA, joins, let's say, an MNC, then in the MNC, they're in this part of the MNC, in that part of the MNC, then they move from this MNC to another MNC, and they're in the same place. Even if you change cities, what is the difference between you living here in Bombay and, say, Dadar and living in, say, Sarojini Nagar in Delhi? It's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same. But this is a profession which will give you 2 to 3 years of change everywhere. You will go to places which you will normally never ever go to. You will see jungles that you would never ever be in. There are places in Siachen and I'm sure in many other areas where if you go on one day, if you just decide walking and say, okay, let me walk along this trail or this ravine, you could actually be setting your foot in a place where no human being has ever been there before. Now that exposure and that ability, even when you're under training, the kind of exposure you're given, ranging from horse riding, swimming, polo, shooting, flying, gliders, pretty much everything that, even millionaires can't afford it. You can't. I used to tell my friends when I was posted in Ahmednagar, there was not one, there were 2 golf courses in that really small town because it had the Armored Corps Regimental Center. So they had their golf course and mechanized. So imagine a place where there is so much of golf course that we had to officially detail students. Tu jayega aaj golf खेलने. I don't want to. No, bloody hell, you'll go. So that's the kind of resources that are available there.
Yeah.
And I think that part of your career, that part of your life when you're young, when you can move around, when you're okay to experiment with life, it's a great place to go and to serve there for 10 years, come back with the knowledge of what that forces teach you, come back with a huge family that exists there, and that will always be family for you. I think those are the reasons why people should join. It teaches you entrepreneurship, teaches you innovation, gets you that band of brothers, psyche, all of those things. And academics. It is one of the institutions which, like so many of my course-mates, became engineers after they joined the army. They came through NDA, they came through IMA, chose engineers, chose signals, and they were made into full-fledged engineers, full-fledged pilots, full-fledged missile pilots. So these are skills that are life skills. This is not only meant for your tenure in the army.
I sincerely hope that there's some kid watching this who comes to you 10 years from now and says that that one podcast that he saw you on kind of convinced him to join the army, or multiple kids.
Or I hope they don't come and curse me. Oh, yeah, I listened to you and look where it got me.
No. Like, I mean, I think yeah, that's the kind of beauty of the age that we live in. Information is this freely available, and perspectives are different. This is also, I think, I don't know whether we did it on the podcast or before the podcast, but you just told me that kids today think differently, equip differently.
Of course they do. Of course they do. Every generation is a completely different generation. So every generation's pace is different, speed is different, value systems are different. Everything changes. Yeah.